say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was asked again, when are you going to run for Congress? When are you going to run? When are you going to run? Why aren't you running? Look, Adam Schiff today is a prime example of why I'm not in Congress. Because I would have walked over there and I would have throat punched that son of a bitch right in the throat. He is the most horrifying, disgusting human being. He is a disgrace to America. He is a disgrace to our Congress. He is a disgrace to the human race. Period. That little pencil neck bitch needs to be taken out of Congress and go home somewhere. Flip burgers at Taco Bell. Anything but be a member of our Congress.
Here's Adam Schiff. Here's his little pencil neck head right here. See, there's his head. Oh, I'm sorry, let me turn around this way. There's his face. Here's his throat. Pencil neck little bitch. Y'all been following that? What's been happening? We're going to talk about it a little bit here in a moment. But anyhow, you got many places you can be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. I thank you very, very much. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the show, whether you're watching us live tonight on YouTube or Rumble or X, formerly Twitter, or we're actually going out live on Facebook tonight, as well as LinkedIn, and share it with your family and friends as well. So, Adam Schiff, what you just saw, that little clip was from back in 2020 when I was knee deep in his crap, and that hasn't changed at all. The way I feel about that guy, he really needs to be taken down by the Department of Justice. And the faster they do it, the better off America will be. Anyhow, the latest is President Trump launched a blistering attack on Adam Schiff this morning, amplifying the 2024 claims that Schiff committed mortgage fraud by lying about his primary residence for over a decade, which the senator, of course, denies. Trump, in a Truth Social post, labeled Schiff a scam artist and claimed he obtained a mortgage for a residence in Maryland in 2009, but only designated it as a second home in 2020 as part of a ruse to snag better rates and terms from the company, which had been in federal conservatorship since 2008 financial crisis, which would be Fannie Mae. And their Financial Crimes Division had uncovered the alleged fraud. Schiff obtained the Maryland property in 2009 while he was a congressman and became a senator in January. Schiff called the accusations baseless. So is your impeachment trial. So is your Russia collusion. I have always suspected Shifty Adam Schiff was a scam artist, and now I've learned that Fannie Mae's Financial Crimes Division have concluded that Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud, Trump said on Truth Social. Adam Schiff said his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage rate and rip off America, when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California. I've always knew Adam Schiff was a crook, Trump said. The fraud began when the refinanced his Maryland property February 6th of 2009 and continued through multiple transactions until the Maryland property was correctly designated as a second home on October 13th of 2020. Mortgage fraud is very serious, and crooked Adam Schiff, now a senator, needs to be brought to justice. Well, Donald Trump, all you need to do, sir, is pick up your phone and call the Department of Justice and tell them to do their job. Schiff was not barred from listing the Maryland home as his primary residence during his term in Congress, since the Constitution only requires that he be an inhabitant of California at the time of his election, not throughout his entire service. However, Schiff cited two residents, one in California and one in Maryland, as his principal residence on multiple mortgage and election forms dating back to 2003. And that, my friends, is where he is guilty. In the last three cases, 2009, 2011, and 2013, Schiff refinanced his Maryland home and declared it his principal residence, while also listing his Burbank, California condo as his primary residence in separate financial documents. He then changed the notation of his Maryland mortgage to be a secondary residence. The pattern was first detected by Kristen Bish, a Sacramento-based real estate investor who ran for Congress last year. She filed an ethics complaint against Schiff in Congress, and of course, the Democrats at the time in control just threw it out like they do everything else when it comes to their party. Schiff said Trump's comments were the latest attempt at political retaliation against his perceived enemies, and said it would not distract from his Epstein file problems. Since I led his first impeachment, Trump has repeatedly called for me to be arrested for treason, Schiff wrote on X. Yes, he did, and I responded to it last night. Go check it out. It's pretty damn funny. So in a way, I guess this is a bit of a letdown. And this baseless attempt at political retribution won't stop me from holding him accountable, not by a long shot. Spokesman for Schiff said that the accusations have been debunked. No, they haven't. Which brings me to something that I just wasn't going to talk about. Jeffrey Epstein bullshit that's happening. I've done my share of talking about Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes on this podcast and in separate videos. And when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and the current situation, the bottom line is I don't like to talk about something on this show that I can't vet 100% and know with accuracy that I've got the right thing to talk to you about. And when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, this is all over the fucking board. I mean, it is literally from one extreme to the other. What we know that's factual is that he was a sexual predator, yes, with underage girls, yes. He had an island that he purchased, and he had a jet that a lot of very high influence people flew on, some to the island where these supposedly underage girls were for these sex parties that he was having. And over time, it came to be known that he had a list of who the clients were to have sex with the underage kids. Now, nobody's seen the list. It's been speculated that the list exists. We do know from the flight logs that were released, all the big name people that have been on Epstein's jet. Former President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump himself, Bill Gates. There is a list. You can look it up. It's all over the internet. There's a list of a bunch of very wealthy people that were friends and acquaintances with Jeffrey Epstein and flew on his private jet. How many actually flew to the island, we don't know. That information's never been let out there. And of course, leading up to this past election, Donald Trump, one of the things he ran on was he would release all of the Jeffrey Epstein files if he was elected. he'd make sure that his Department of Justice released it to the public. And many of you wanted to see that list, see everything that's in it, myself included. And we know that before becoming FBI director, Kash Patel made some very serious accusations about what he thought there was, without ever seeing it himself. Pam Bondi did the same thing, who's now the Department of Justice head. They both are on record saying that there was a client list. Pam Bondi even at one point recently, just a few weeks ago, said that it was on her desk and she saw it. Now, she's since come back and said that's not what she meant. What she meant was the entire file was on her desk to review, to let out to the public, not supposedly the client list. Then after reviewing everything, several things came out of this. She said that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't murdered, he hung himself, he committed suicide. And that all the evidence that was in the file pointed to suicide. There was no way to charge anybody with murdering him. I still have reservations about whether or not I believe Jeffrey Epstein was killed. It's something that we're probably never going to have the answer to, no matter how much we want to have the answer to. But what's happening right now, especially with the liberals and liberal Democrats, members in Congress like Adam Schiff, is they're trying to say that this list they're claiming doesn't exist now because after Pam Bondi saw it, Donald Trump's name was on it as a client having sex with underage girls. Therefore, she's covering for Donald Trump. That's what they want you to believe. Okay? Now, let me explain to you why that's total bullshit and why I believe that the list just doesn't, there is no list. There's a flight log list of who flew on the airplane from location to location, none for who went to the island. We do know that Donald Trump was friends or acquaintances with Jeffrey Epstein for a very short period of time. And once the allegations came out, the first allegations that Epstein was arrested and charged with underage girl sex trafficking, Donald Trump barred him from ever coming back to Mar-a-Lago again and distanced himself from the guy completely. I mean, that's factual. We know that. But to go any further than that, you would just have to speculate or assume that Donald Trump was involved somehow with sex with underage kids. So let me tell you why I think that that is 100% not true. These files have been in the Department of Justice hands for about 20 years. And every year they kept getting added to as Epstein went to and from court. There were some shady people involved in the government that for reasons we don't know were allowing Epstein to have a slap on the wrist and get away with a lot of this stuff. During Trump's first 4 years in office, the Jeffrey Epstein files were in the Department of Justice. They knew about it, so did the FBI. Trump comes out of office, Biden comes in. Same thing. They had all this information. Jeffrey Epstein then commits suicide. Now they have everything. So the Democrats, when they had the House, the Senate, and 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, tried everything in their power to discredit Donald Trump and not get him to be able to run again. They tried to get him kicked out of being president, for crying out loud, when he was president the first 4 years with the impeachment trials. Everything they could dig up on this guy, they pulled out and they threw it at the wall, hoping something would stick. And nothing stuck. Nothing. That's why they call him Teflon Don, because he is the most investigated human on planet Earth, if you think about it. No one that I'm aware of has went under this much of the microscope by the Justice Department and the FBI than Donald J. Trump, or congressional inquiries up in Washington, D.C. No one, not even Richard Nixon, for crying out loud, or Bill Clinton with the Monica Lewinsky crap. No one has experienced what Donald Trump experienced. His first 4 years in office, and then 4 years under the Biden administration. They made up stuff. They literally, think about this. They made up the Russia collusion, and there were people colluding to try and pin this that didn't exist on Donald Trump to destroy him. So if there was anything in these files that implicated Donald J. Trump as a pedophile, don't you think that the Democrats, when they had control of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and the House and the Senate and the Department of Justice and the FBI, would have released it? Of course they would have. That's the closest thing to a nail in the coffin for Donald Trump that they could have come up with, because the attempted suicides didn't even, the attempted assassinations didn't even work, for crying out loud. And here we are with them trying to say that this is the reason why. This is why it's not being released. And Pam Bondi said it's some of the files that she wanted to release to the public. She's not going to, based on the fact that it's got information about these underage girls, underage at the time, that she didn't feel was morally appropriate. And I can imagine that's there. It's obviously, it was a sex crime thing. He was running a child pornography and child pedophile ring with underage girls. So, and the ones that have come forward have sued the Epstein family and the estate and have won millions of dollars. So there are no other victims out there that we know of, at least none have come forward other than the ones that have already been paid off. Sorry he did this to you. Here's however many millions of dollars. But for the Democrats and liberals to be holding on by a thread by trying to convince people that Pam Bondi and the FBI is, and there was even some clashes that were happening with that. Okay, that's factual. That was taking place last week, where Dan Bongino, the second in command of the FBI, supposedly got very upset that Pam Bondi wasn't going to release all of these files to the American public and was threatening to quit. And then supposedly, I don't know this to be fact, but this is what the news media reported on, and we know all about them, that Kash Patel was in the same boat with Dan. And that is, if he quits, I quit. Or Pam Bondi goes away. Well, both of them are still there. Neither one of them have quit, unless they have quit since I've come on the air tonight. And stranger things have happened. I've been doing the show talking about something that, might happen, and it happened while I was on air. And afterwards, and I was like, oh, shit. Trump's made it clear that he just doesn't give a shit about this anymore. And, it's up to the Department of Justice. He campaigned on releasing the records. He said he wants them released. If somebody's guilty and they were involved with Epstein as far as the underage girl thing was concerned, why would they want these records released, for crying out loud? But even if that was just smoke and mirrors to make you think that, hey, I want them released, but then when I become president, I'm going to appoint a Department of Justice person that will have my back and won't release that information. Even if you were to believe that, if you think for one damn second that under the 4 years of the Biden administration that they wouldn't have released that information, then you're smoking Hunter Biden crack. That's why I believe there was no list. There just wasn't. There was no client list of who was having sex with underage kids. Videos of it happening? I'm sure. Will we ever know that? No. But I do believe that even if Bill Clinton, for instance, was on that video of having sex with these kids, that no Department of Justice head is going to release that because it was a sitting president at one time. I just don't think they're going to morally go there. Like, he's just an old, feeble man now that doesn't matter. Should it matter? Should anybody that they know for a fact that was in these files that they can prove were involved with sex trafficking little girls or having sex with them, should it matter? Yeah. Should they be prosecuted for it? Even if they're a sitting president or a former sitting president? Hell yes. But for 4 years, the Democrats had the Department of Justice, the FBI, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the House and the Senate, and they threw everything they had at Donald Trump to try and put him in jail and to not allow him to become president again. And they didn't pull out that. That only tells me because it isn't there. It did not exist. There's no evidence to connect Donald Trump to anything other than, which he already admitted to, flying on Epstein's jet from point A to point B in America, and you can see it on the flight logs where he went, along with thousands of other millionaires in America. And whether or not something happened on the jet with an underage kid, I don't know. Neither do you, neither does anybody else out there, regardless of your political party. But the fact that so many people, Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, were all working themselves into a frenzy about this Jeffrey Epstein file, you're just wasting your time. Get over it. Because Epstein got what was coming to him. He's dead. He took his own life. Good. He was a pedophile. I wish that if there are other people involved, regardless of who they are, regardless of their political party, regardless of their current status in the government, that if it could be proven, then they could be taken down by our Justice Department. but you're never going to see anything else go past what just took place when she released her final, Pam Bondi did, her final statements on this shit. So there you go. That's what I personally believe. There's no list. Now, I was going to read to you, and I'm not going to waste my time with it now because I just want to be done with this. But you can go check it out yourself. It's all over the internet. Everything you want to know about Jeffrey Epstein's on the internet. But Wikipedia, who, by the way, I personally don't like because they're already a far left-leaning organization, and they allow people to come in and edit and change things without having factual information. But Wikipedia right now currently has, and it's titled Jeffrey Epstein's Client List. All right. So look it up after tonight's show and read what Wikipedia says about it. It's all about assuming and hypotheticals, and that there's absolutely no evidence that it exists. Never has been. So if you want to spend some of your time researching that, then please have at it. It's America, for crying out loud. And if you're watching me from another country, which many of you are, especially up in Canada, you got the same access to the internet as I do or anybody else. Okay, so the big beautiful bill that the Democrats up in Washington, D.C. are so against. Oh my God, every one of them voted against this bill. They hated it. They came out and they spoke so much nonsense, no merit bullshit about how horrible this bill was going to be for the American people. Not because that's how they really felt. They knew it was a good bill for the American people, for crying out loud. But because it'd be a win for Donald Trump. And they can't have that. Donald Trump could find the cure for cancer tomorrow. And they're going to find a way to prove that he actually is injecting people with something to give them cancer, for crying out loud. Donald Trump could be filmed by CNN or MSNBC, a reporter literally walking across water, a lake, for instance, like Jesus Christ did, and they would say, Trump can't swim. It doesn't matter what Trump does. But this whole big, beautiful bill that's now law, it's passed, they're still trying to trash it and make up shit. So I want you to just listen to this for a moment. The White House has now rolled out an interactive map of the United States showing the savings Americans can expect from initiatives under President Trump's big, beautiful bill on a state-by-state basis. Today, the White House published the interactive map of the 50 states that provides a breakdown of how much Americans can expect to save and see in their pocketbooks compared to if the bill had not passed and been signed into law. In other words, transparency, my friends. The interactive map focuses on data such as real wage increases, which are understood as the increase of a worker's income after accounting for inflation, a family's expected real take-home pay increase, how many seniors benefit from no tax on Social Security, the percentage of a state's labor force who are expected to benefit from not paying tax on tips, the number of jobs protected in a state and many other data entries. In California, for instance, the nation's most populated states, residents can expect real wage increase of $4,900 to $8,800 and a real take-home pay increase of $8,500 to $12,500 for a typical family with 2 kids, according to that interactive map. A typical family with 2 children in California can expect to see higher take-home pay of about $8,500, $12,500 with the bill compared to if it was not passed, which includes links to more detailed data for each individual state. Around 4% of the labor force is employed in occupations that would likely benefit from the no tax on tips provision in the bill. Around 6 million seniors in California could benefit from the no tax on Social Security provision that's in the bill. Residents in the heartland, such as Nebraska, can expect a real wage increase of $3,700 to $6,600 and a real take-home increase for a typical family with 2 children of $73,000 to $10,300. The map also touts 300,000 seniors in the Cornhusker state are expected to benefit from the lack of tax on Social Security. Expected 29% of the state's labor force expected to benefit from the lack of tax on overtime pay. All of which, if the Biden administration had come up with this big, beautiful bill, not a single Democrat would be against it because it's great for the American people. But it's a win for Trump, so they went out and touted that it's a horrible bill. On the East Coast, residents of New Jersey can expect a real wage increase of $5,000 to $9,000, a real take-home pay increase of $8,600 to $12,700 for a typical family with 2 children, according to the data. New Yorkers can expect $4,400 to $8,000 real wage increase and a real take-home pay increase of $8,000 to $11,700, according to the data. The bill was voted against by every single Democrat because it would be a good thing for Trump, and we, the people, would love it, even those that don't like Trump. The bill ultimately passed and includes key provisions to permanently establish individuals and tax income breaks that were included in Trump's 2017, when he was president the first time, Tax Cut and Jobs Act. So the Democrats voting against it wanted that to go away, so then you would have to pay higher taxes. That's what would happen if it didn't get passed. We'd all be affected with higher taxes. It also takes care of certain Biden-era green energy tax credits and throws that shit out. Allots approximately $350 billion for defense in Trump's massive deportation efforts, which the Democrats don't like, and institutes Medicaid reform, which means that we're kicking off all the illegal aliens that are sucking away our money, our tax dollars. Treasury Secretary Scott Basson praised the bill in an opinion piece recently, celebrating that Americans can expect to keep an additional $4,000 to $7,200 in annual real wages. The bill prevents a $4.5 trillion tax hike on the American people. This will allow the average worker to keep an additional $4,000 to $7,200 annual wages, allowing family afford to keep an additional $7,000 to $10,900 in take-home pay. Add to this the president's deregulation agenda, which would save the average family of 4 an additional $10,000 for millions of Americans. These savings are the difference between being able to make a mortgage payment, buy a car, or send a child to college. The one big beautiful bill also codifies no tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay. Both policies designate to provide financial relief to American working class, he added. These tax breaks will ensure Main Street workers keep more in their hard-earned income, and they will bolster productivity by rewarding Americans who work extra hours. All Americans can learn how President Trump's tax cuts will impact their lives for the better, even you Democrats and liberals out there, with the White House calculator, which you can find by going to I thought I wrote it down on a separate piece of paper. Well, if you go to whitehouse.gov, on the first page there, I thought for sure I wrote that down separately. Tell you what I will do after tonight's show. I will put it in the in my community section for you if you need to do that, or just go to whitehouse.gov, and from the front page you will see where you can go to find the tax calculator. And you can put it in your own state, your own information, and bam, there it is. Transparency on top of transparency, which is what the Democrats up in Washington, D.C. did not want to happen, because they want you to believe that Donald Trump's an evil man. He's destroying our economy. He's destroying everything about us. He's taking away our rights. He's arresting American citizens. He's a Nazi. He's no different than Hitler. All this crap that they keep spewing and doubling down on and trying to make you believe isn't working. It's the same shit they ran on that caused them to lose the House, the Senate, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But they're still using the same talking points. Now, you all know who Chris Cuomo is, right? The Democrat. Chris Cuomo hates Donald Trump, for crying out loud. He's got his own podcast now. He used to be on a host on CNN. And even Chris Cuomo is looking at what the Democrats in Washington, D.C. are doing, especially with AOC, going, why? So take a listen to this. It's only a few 30 seconds or less.
On Trump sucks by outrage and making your own MAGA. I don't think it's going to work for Democrats. I think you're making a mistake paying attention to AOC and this new deference to radical left and radical fundamentalist and radical Islamist sympathies. I think it's a huge mistake. You are once again valuing the few over the many. And if you think trans sports got you in a pickle, you're about to be in a whole bucket of brine.
When you lose Chris Cuomo, I don't know what else to tell you, liberals and Democrats. Even he sees what I've been telling you for years now. None of what you have witnessed and heard come out of the Democrats in Washington, D.C.'s mouth has been true. It's all lies. And then they get their liberal pundits on podcasts, especially on the platform of YouTube, to go out and spread their lies. And then people believe it, and they don't do their homework. And they actually believe that Trump's a Nazi, and that those of you who voted for him are Nazis too. You're little skinheads. And the Democrats just keep putting out shit that's just not true. For instance, Florida Congresswoman Maria Salazar from Florida joined the Democrats over the weekend to tour Alligator Alcatraz. Well, that's what it's called because it happens to be in the Everglades, and it's a place to put these illegal gang members before they get deported. She went to that detention center with a group of Democrat members of Congress over the weekend and says that it meets the highest standards of all federal inmate facilities. And that the Democrats claim that its conditions are cruel is just simply not true. She saw the same thing they saw. Republican lawmaker who represents Florida's 27th congressional district toured the facility with other Democrat legislators over the weekend, where she got a firsthand look at the conditions. She described the individual cells that they were able to go into. They actually went into them and got to actually talk to the freaking inmates. It's clean. The beds were nicer than prison beds, and they were soft. Each cell had 3 metal toilets with dividers between it so you can do your business in private. They had 2 telephones per cell where they were allowed to call their attorneys or their loved ones. She said they have a recreation area with grass where they can run, they can do exercises, and that it meets the highest standards of any federal facility that she's ever toured, and she's toured many of them across America. Other areas contain Spanish Bibles and other religious materials that they had access to. A separate space where inmates can sit with their attorneys is also provided. She's speaking out because of the Democrat lawmakers who toured the jail right alongside her, criticizing the facility as the baddest facility that it could possibly ever be. For instance, Florida Democrat Representative Debbie Wartzman Schultz slammed the detention center as an internment camp after visiting it on Saturday, saying conditions she witnessed inside the building were appalling. Representative Darrell Soto, Democrat Florida, called the center a cruel political stunt and a spectacle of political theater. Other Democrat Congress members that were there complained, and this was the one that I loved the most, okay? I'm sure you saw them over the weekend. If you haven't, you can look it up. It's all over the fucking internet. This was their biggest concern, that the inmates' water to drink, or as they're brushing their teeth or using their toilet, was the same water. Guess what? It's that way in your house too, or in a hotel, for crying out loud. Unless you drink bottled water, like I do, the same water that comes from your sink to drink, or brush your teeth with, or take a shower with, or wash your clothes with, or flush your toilet with, is the exact same water. But they want you to believe, the way they spun this, if you watched it, is that there's like one pot of water to defecate in, urinate in, brush your teeth with, and drink from. That's what they got out and said in front of the media. That's how they spun this. It's all a freaking lie. Everything they could possibly do to destroy Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to request to tour it myself and bring the cameras in there so you can see it for yourself. Whether or not they're going to allow me to do it, I don't know, but I'm going to request to do it because I want you to see it from me. More to come. Customs and Border Protection confirmed today that 5 Iranians were arrested while attempting to illegally cross our border in a van. Agents located a minivan occupied by 5 citizens of Iran and 2 citizens of Uzbekistan. CBP said that all 7 men had been previously arrested for attempting to cross the border illegally. All 7 aliens are detained and awaiting deportation as we speak. Earlier this month, FBI counterterrorism said that Iranian terrorist sleeper cells are here. And we know that from under the Biden administration, what FBI Director Christopher Wray testified in front of Congress, that I talked about right here on his podcast, that's what kept him up at night the most, was that he knew that there were sleeper cells in America waiting to strike. FBI Special Agent and Counterterrorism Task Force member Jonathan Gill pointed to the Biden administration's border policies as a reason for the concern that he has. They could even go to the border and say they want to seek asylum, and the Biden administration, instead of putting them in Department of Homeland Security custody or ICE custody and holding them there to vet them and set them up for their first appearance, they were just let loose into our country. In 2023, terrorism report released by the State Department in December of last year, the federal government outlined numerous incidents of worrying behavior by Iranian nationals in Western countries. 2023, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed an indictment charging 3 individuals connected with Iran as a plot to assassinate an Iranian dissident in New York City. Also in 2023, the United Kingdom court found a man guilty of attempting to collect information for terrorism purposes on a London-based Iranian international and media company that is critical of the Iranian regime. In recent years, the countries of Albania, Belgium, and the Netherlands have all either arrested, convicted, or expelled Iranian government officials implicated in various terrorist plots in their respective territories. Denmark recently recalled its ambassador for Tehran for learning of an Iranian-backed plot to kill an Iranian dissident in that country. And as I've told you many, many times before, it's not if, it's when. We know they're here. We know that even under Biden, that we arrested hundreds, thousands of people that are on the no-fly list because of their terrorism ties. So how many got through of the over 1 million plus that were gotaways? If you go back and you watch the border documentaries I did, which you can see at douglasducote.com, go look at the one where I interviewed the head of the border union, the president of the border union for Border Patrol. And listen what he had to say when we showed him the stuff that we found on the border. And you can see the video of us as we actually found it, of the Iranian garb that was caught up in the bushes where they came across the Rio Grande. And when we showed that to him, and how he said, the problem is the Democrats up in Washington, D.C. are saying, well, it was just one person you caught. Or, oh, you only caught 2 people. Or on this month, you only caught 4. And he's like, it only takes 1 to make a really, really bad day in America. And we've got thousands here waiting to kill you and me. It's not if, it's when will they strike. And I've said this before, and I will say it again, because I truly believe this. From all of my friends that I used to work for and work with in law enforcement that are still in law enforcement today, and I've got friends that are working in county and city and federal, state, law enforcement, and they're all saying the same thing. We're going to experience another 9/11 style attack, but this time it's going to be from within our country, not from those overseas trying to come over here to do it, like what we saw in 9/11, because they're already here. And when it happens, you need look no further than those that the Biden administration put in charge of the Department of Justice and the FBI and Homeland Security. The blood of the innocent will be on their hands. That is a fact. Anyhow, if you have many places you could be tonight, you chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. I thank you very, very much. There's a lot goes into preparing for this show. You know, I'm only on 2 nights a week for an hour. Sometimes I go a little over, sometimes a little less. But my wife can tell you that I sometimes put in 8 to 12 hours a day in between shows, and especially the day of, preparing for what I'm going to talk about to make damn sure I'm vetting it and getting it 100% right, because there's so much shit out there. If you take any particular story and you look at the way it's talked about on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or ABC or CBS or NBC, it's all over the gamut. And so I spent a lot of time trying to make sure when I come on the air and talk to you that you're getting factual information. And unlike many other people out there that do podcasts, when I get something wrong, and sometimes that does happen, especially back when I used to have people that help vet this stuff for me, that happened a lot. Doesn't happen anymore because now I personally do it. So I spend a lot of time literally preparing for these 2 hours a week that I did. Well, my sister today, when I was over at my parents' house, I had to take my dad to a doctor's appointment today. And so I was getting ready to leave. I said, well, I got to go. I got to get back home because I got to go to work. And my sister says, work? You got a job? And I said, yeah, I got this podcast. And she says, that's not work. What are you talking about? I said, you have no idea what I do to put this out. I don't just sit here and talk out the side of my ass for just 1 hour on Tuesday night, 1 hour on Thursday night. There is so much work that I do and so many things that I download. And so any story I talk about, I've got to dig deep to find out what the truth is, because you just can't get it from the mainstream news media anymore. You just can't. You don't know what's the truth, whether you're watching Fox or CNN or any of the rest of them. They're just, the news media of yesteryear is gone. And now most people rely on people like me to come tell you the truth. And sadly, a lot of people on the left and a lot of Democrats listen to some of these podcasters that they think are telling the truth because they just so happen to have 1 million+ followers, and they think, oh, they must know the truth. And if you look at their education and you look at their background, they don't have shit. And what I do is based on not only my education, but my law enforcement experience, my military experience, my tours in the military across the world, my work in law enforcement on the border in Central and South America, and then common damn sense of putting this all together and looking at the different spins from the different agencies, and then making phone calls to people that are in the know, whether they're at the Pentagon or at the FBI or a local sheriff's office, to get the factual truth. And then I put it out to you. My wife, I'll be honest with you, she'd prefer I didn't do this, because there are times when I'm up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning the night before, trying to chase down something that I'm going to talk about to make damn sure that when I come on the air, when this show's over with, you can take that shit to the bank. That what came out of my mouth is 100% factual. And again, in the past, when I've counted on somebody else to do this work for me, and that really wasn't work. Literally, I had a producer. You all remember that. You have been following me for a long time. This show looked like you were watching a professional news program because I had a producer. I had all these people that did all this shit. It was produced out of Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. All I had to do was 2 nights a week, click on a button and boom, I was live. And everything I was going to talk about, everything I was going to do was all vetted and everything was done for me. I didn't have to do any of my own homework, for crying out loud. Those days are gone. I do it 100% myself. Nobody vets what I talk about on this show. I do it. So trust me, you can take what's coming out of my mouth is 100% accurate, because it is. I'm staking my name on it and my reputation on it. And my name and my reputation means more to me than anything you can possibly ever imagine. Folks, whatever you're doing tonight, please be safe. Tune in on Thursday night for another show at 8 p.m. Central Time. Again, subscribe to my show whether you're watching me tonight on YouTube or Rumble or X, formerly Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, and share it with your family and friends so we can continue to build and produce and make this a very, very popular, than what it already is, podcast for American patriots across this country. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. If something of very importance happens between now and Thursday's show that needs to get out there, I'll either do a video about it or I will do a live show about it. Other than that, be safe, folks. Have a wonderful and blessed week, and I'll see you on Thursday. Good night.